Coming up on Wavelength, the dangerous plant Hydrilla invades Lake Travis. And we'll head out into the field with one of LCRA's substation maintenance crews.
And then later on Wavelength, if you drive an LCRA vehicle, then you'll likely be affected by a new safety policy that allows LCRA to check your driving record.
And we'll show you what some employees are up to in their time off. All that and more next on Wavelength.
From the Lower Colorado River Authority, this is Wavelength.
Hi everybody and welcome to Wavelength. LCRA is about to wage war against an aquatic plant called Hydrilla. Hydrilla was discovered in Lake Travis this past summer, and it represents a fairly significant problem. Hydrilla is an aggressive plant that can grow by as much as 2 feet a day in vines that can get up to 35 feet long. Left unchecked, it will crowd out and eliminate virtually all other aquatic plants, clogging the water so badly that boating, fishing, and even swimming becomes difficult. So how do you get rid of Hydrilla?
Chemical treatment is one option, but because of Lake Travis and as large a lake as it is, that's probably not a viable option. Plus, with draining into Lake Austin, the city of Austin receives its drinking water from Lake Austin. You wouldn't want to be dumping a bunch of chemicals into Lake Travis. So it's going to more than likely be a physical treatment. Actually, physically we're trying to remove the plant. And there we have a couple of options, one of them being dredging, actually try to dredge out the patches of Hydrilla that we found, taking the soil with it.
In addition to Lake Travis, Lakes Fayette and Bastrop are the only other 2 areas of the Lower Colorado River system known to have Hydrilla. But if Hydrilla gets a hold in Lake Travis, floodgate releases from Travis in the future could carry unlimited bits and pieces of the plant to all areas downstream, where each of them could take root and grow. Lake Austin, for instance, is about 59 feet deep here at the dam, but it is not nearly that deep up through most of the lake. If Hydrilla gets into Lake Austin, it's estimated it would only take about 5 years for it to completely cover this lake over. That's why controlling it in Lake Travis will be especially important. Also, Hydrilla was most likely transported into Lake Travis on a boat propeller, so it's important that those who take their boats from one body of water to another make sure the propellers are clean. You may have heard that FPP Unit 1 is out of service right now due to an equipment failure. And as Richard Gaylord tells us, our crews down there are continuing their investigation into possible damage and making repairs.
One eyewitness said it looked like an arc welder with Roman candles going off on top. This circuit breaker for Unit 1 at the Fayette Power Project failed on September 5th, causing an explosion which scattered fragments up to 200 feet away. This is the switch yard for Units 1 and 2, where electricity leaving the plant is connected to the transmission system. This circuit breaker, which cost about $175,000, links the generator to the switch yard. When it failed, Unit 1 tripped offline, but not before serious damage occurred. Crews are now tearing down the unit, checking for damage as they go.
I think it's a pretty big problem, I think. As far as damage to the number 4 and 5 bearing that we found arcing on 4 and 5 on the top halves of the bearing. That's going to have to be repaired. Also, overall picture, I would think that the field has quite a bit of damage.
Meanwhile, special procedures have been implemented to safeguard the remaining breakers.
One of our chief concerns is that we have 10 other devices identical to this throughout our system. There are retrofit kits that we can upgrade the air system and reduce the possibility of this happening again. Matter of fact, today they are retrofitting some of these breakers.
There are a lot of questions yet to be answered, but it appears that Unit 1 will be out of service for quite some time.
There are a couple of issues on the minds of LCRA employees these days. One has to do with the development underway now of a drug testing policy for the company. That would involve drug testing and safety and security-sensitive jobs. We talked to General Manager Mark Rose about the program, and we asked him, first of all, why is the drug testing policy needed?
We need a clear set of rules. We don't have it. We have a policy on alcohol abuse, but we don't really have a clear policy on drug abuse. And I think we need one. It's been mentioned by the board, but more fundamentally, I think we'd all be better served by a clear, concise policy.
Something else people wonder, what will be the role of management in a drug testing policy?
If one employee in this company is required to take a drug test, then the general manager will take a drug test, and everyone in senior management will take a drug test, period.
So what's happening now is management has begun to decide which LCRA jobs would be affected by a drug testing policy. Another policy that's being finalized affects those of you who drive LCRA vehicles on the job. Pat Freese has that story.
On any given day, LCRA employees drive company vehicles roughly 18,000 miles, or about 4.5 million miles a year. Up until now, only drivers of commercial vehicles had their driving records checked on an annual basis, but starting in December, all employees who drive a company vehicle or who have a car allowance will be checked once a year. The policy will likely affect 70% of the LCRA workforce. The idea is to spot problem drivers before they have an accident.
Obviously, if we have an employee with a bad driving record or a series of driving while under the influence, and we allow that employee to continue driving and unfortunately has an accident, not only is that employee injured, but it also draws the authority into the matter. Inasmuch as the employer, we have a certain responsibility to the public that our drivers are operating in the most effective manner possible.
One element of the new policy is a point deduction system. If you are convicted of a traffic violation in either a company vehicle or your personal vehicle, you'll be assessed points. If you get 10 points over a 3-year period, your driving privilege could be suspended.
We'll have to issue a citation for the speeding, and I'll be with you just a second.
Okay, great. Well, if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation like I am of getting a ticket, whether it's in an LCRA vehicle or your own personal vehicle, you need to notify your supervisor immediately. Now, each ticket has a certain number of points that are assigned with it, and in this case, speeding, thanks, is worth 3 points. At the top of the list is drunk driving. A conviction is an automatic 10 points and suspension of driving privilege. Other driving offenses have lower point values. But the good news is that once you get points, you can have 2 of them erased by taking the free driver improvement course through the safety division. We talked with some employees about the new policy.
Some guys think that maybe, what they do on their own time is their own business, but then if you look at it from the company, I guess if you're a bad driver at home, then I guess you're possibly to be a bad driver here at work.
Well, I think it's okay. It's got its downfalls, and it's going to make people watch their driving better and be more careful, and bearing that in mind, they'll drive right, we hope.
No, I think it's kind of a good idea.
Why is that?
Well, LCRA is going to have to, you're responsible for this truck. Truck costs money. You need to take care of it. Be careful. You're putting other people at risk also when you're driving an LCRA vehicle.
Compton says companies that have similar policies have seen a decrease in the number of accidents. And although LCRA's overall driving record is good, Compton says the goal is to try to avoid accidents altogether.
Fire swept through this Lake Austin marina September 14th, damaging at least 50 boats and destroying several docks. More than 50 firefighters helped battle the blaze, which was spread rapidly by burning fuel from boat gas tanks. As workers sifted through the debris and started the huge cleanup task, Biologist Rusty Ray with LCRA's Water Quality Department surveyed the damage. Ray was also on the scene the night of the fire. He says his main goal was to offer advice to firefighters on how best to deal with the environmental impact to the river.
It was the hazardous material unit, the coordinator there on scene. We recommended boom material, sorbent boom material, so that it would catch any of the floating hydrocarbons, either oil or the gas that were on top of the water. And it would also contain any of the debris that might be floating around in the lake. And they responded real well. We finished putting the booms out about 3 o'clock in the Sunday morning.
Generators were temporarily shut down at Tom Miller Dam to make sure no fuel or fire debris was passed on downstream. Ray says that due to the quick response and cooperation between the fire department, city staff, and LCRA, environmental damage was kept to a minimum.
It's part of our hydromat system, the LCRA's hydromat system.
A brisk, foggy morning greeted this delegation from the People's Republic of China as they visited this LCRA test station on the Colorado River in Bastrop. The group is from the Yellow River Water Conservancy Commission, much like a river authority, and their trip to Central Texas is part of a fact-finding tour which will take them from coast to coast. This monitoring station is one of 86 in the region which make up LCRA's hydromet system. It measures rainfall amounts, stream flow, and water quality parameters.
What's the power supply for this?
Next stop, the Fayette Power Project in LaGrange.
You can see the gray cone-shaped silos, that's what holds the coal.
The mission of the Yellow River Conservancy Commission is very similar to that of LCRA. They have 7 hydroelectric dams on the Yellow River, and they provide water, flood control, power supply, and sediment control.
Now we are in the process of developing the water resources in the Yellow River Basin. And what we are specifically interested in is how the projects are managed, how the projects are financed, how do you calculate your cost, how those costs are going to be covered. So basically we are interested in the administrative sides for our trip.
From FPP, the group moved on to Eagle Lake for a tour of the Rice Irrigation District. Then the following day they made their final stop here at the Environmental Lab.
The data, the results are automatically, we don't have to enter anything, it's automatic.
From here, the group will visit the Tennessee Valley Authority and then on to Washington, D.C. before returning to China.
No, this is not a scene from an LCRA grid management seminar. This is Chris Kennedy of LCRA's Finance Department bungee jumping. Fellow employees John Duran and Renee Mejia also took the big plunge on a recent outing in New Braunfels. Although they said it was the scariest thing they have ever done, they're looking forward, they say, to their next adventure, skydiving. There are probably a number of you out there who have an adventurous spirit. Take, for instance, the trip taken each year by Ferguson Power Plant manager Norman Jones and his wife Krista, who's a purchasing agent here.
And it's got auto leveling, which is a load goes, you auto level it so it runs level. Cruise control, tape player. I guess it's got everything you can put on a car.
But it's not a car. It's Norman and Krista Jones' 1400cc Super Deluxe Suzuki Cavalcade motorcycle. What are you carrying with you?
Everything but the kitchen sink, and I think we got a place for it. We just didn't get it loaded this time.
Ever since they married 4 years ago, these LCRA employees have been cruising across America. And when we caught up with them, they were on their way to Arkansas.
This was a trip that we made our honeymoon when we got married in 1987. This was how I broke her into motorcycling, and it was on this annual trip to Arkansas that we went on.
So, nothing but the best.
Nothing but the best. We travel first class.
I don't think about LCRA. I wouldn't have a vacation if I did. And I just enjoy it. Just being out in the open air, it's just relaxing to me.
This is our escape thing that we do to kind of get everything behind us with no television, no telephone, and for the most part, no radios. And this is just kind of the way that we relax this time of year, this once a year.
LCRA has 4 substation maintenance crews. These are the people who maintain and repair some 200 customer and LCRA substations across our 41-county service area. This crew services high-voltage substations and includes 2 electricians, 2 apprentice electricians, and a foreman.
Yeah, this is Mike Bowen with LCRA, and we're out here at the Rutherford substation, and we're going to overhaul PEC's OCB 3490.
Before any work begins, the crew calls the SOC center to get the power turned off to the equipment they will be servicing. Even with that done, other precautions are taken.
Mike, what's he doing?
It's putting the grounds on the breaker. Like I say, before we do any overhaul or anything, after they switched it out, you call the dispatcher and get a clearance, and you put grounds on each side of the breaker. It's just a safety precaution.
Today's assignment: routine maintenance on this breaker. That means filtering its oil. This breaker holds about 350 gallons, taking diagnostic readings on different components, and looking the breaker over in general.
What happened? You got holes through the bushing tops up here.
Right now, they seem to have found a problem of something getting across the bushings and burning holes in the bushing caps. So what will they have to do?
We'll have to check for water inside the bushings. The glass portion right there just has insulating fluid and insulating oil. And we'll need to check for moisture in that. And if there's none found, then we'll reseal the holes up.
Do you repair any problem pretty much that you find out here during these maintenance episodes?
Yes, sir. Anything we come across, we're capable of repairing or replacing.
The work of a substation's maintenance crew can be physically hard, and you have to, of course, know your stuff. The most enjoyable part of the job?
You've got a lot of variety in the job. You never really do the same thing twice each day. You get to be outside, which is nice when it's good weather. When it's unpleasant weather, it's not too good. But it's you kind of run upon a challenge every day. You run into something different.
Sometimes that something different can be snakes or birds that foul up equipment, or worse perhaps, wasp.
There's a lot of wasp nests everywhere. When you're climbing on the structures and stuff, you got to make sure you don't, stick your face up to a big nest, because they're big.
That's it for this edition of Wavelength. Thanks for being with us. We'll leave you with some of the sights and sounds from LCRA's vehicle auction, which this year netted over $100,000, and we'll see you next time.
What do you want to give her? 300, 500, 600, 600, 700. You got 1200 with you. You got $1,200 bid. I sold it number 407. $1,200